Hey there, Starseeds! Welcome to Beyond the Cosmic Table. We're a group of friends from different cultures, backgrounds, and beliefs. We gather around our table and initiate honest and open conversations on how energy and frequencies influence what we create around us. By expanding awareness, we're able to journey with practical guidance, leading to our highest awareness and conscious living. So, take a seat and join us at our table. In this episode, Susan shares all about her spiritual journey, from her religious upbringing to her curiosity and desire to know more about spirituality and metaphysics, and her divine meetings that eventually guided her to the tribe of like-minded friends that she had been seeking all along. Hello, Susan. How are you?
I'm doing great, Kim. How are you doing?
I'm great. I'm really excited to hear you share your story about your spiritual journey.
Oh, thanks. This is so great. I love learning about where everyone is coming from, and just everyone has such different experiences that brings us all to the table. So this has been so fun. I would say my spiritual journey really started growing up in a very religious family. I was part of a religious, really a strict Christian sect. And the church that we went to was very revelations based. And so there was a lot of fear kind of keeping you on the straight and narrow, to avoid all those, awful things that would happen in the end times. Yeah, that was kind of where I started. And then as I grew up a little bit more, I really got curious, and I wanted to find more about this loving God that I had always heard about, and started to rebel against my family's church, just as teenagers often do. But it was a very emotional time, during that period. And, my family is very loving and close. And, in all sincerity, my parents would come to me and be like, Susan, we love you. We don't want you to go to hell. So, it was challenging, but I was very headstrong, and ended up walking away from that. But I didn't venture too very far, and ended up really more in mainstream Christianity for many years in my late teens and in early 20s. I think probably as far as my spiritual journey, I would say my first really unexplained type of experience happened one day. I was praying and asking questions, as I ask a lot of questions, and I started immediately getting answers in my head, and they would just hop into my mind, these answers. And I was like, whoa, where did that come from? It's like, wow, this is really cool. So I kept asking questions, and I kept getting all these answers until the answers I received were really inconsistent about my beliefs with, God and Jesus and what I thought I should be getting. And not just the answers themselves, but even the manner that they would come in. They were very casual. It wasn't like, oh, my dear child, I love you. This is what I have for, that's kind of what you expect when you hear from God. And they were a lot more casual and confusing. So it's like some of the answers I would get I would ask about, is this the way things really work in the religion or in life in general? And I would get back answers like, well, that's not really the right question. I'm like, well, that's strange. Or I would say, well, does it work like this? And it's like, that's not really the way it works. And it was almost as if it's like an adult trying to explain something to a child that doesn't have a frame of reference for understanding. At that point, I was like, well, this is strange. Where's this coming from? And at that point, I only had 3 options. I was like, well, is this coming from my own head? Am I making this up? Well, in a million years, I wouldn't come up with some of these answers. So I knew it wasn't coming from me. And then the other one was God, of course. But I was like, boy, it just doesn't sound like how God would answer these questions. And then the other option was the devil. That was the only other option I had. And I was like, well, they don't sound evil either. And I wasn't sure what to make of it. And so after a while, I just got really scared. I didn't know how to categorize these answers I was getting. And so I just shut it down, and I stopped asking questions altogether.
So it never even came to your mind that this was your higher self or your soul speaking to you?
At that point, I had no concept of a higher soul, a
Mm.
higher self, or a soul, or that anything other than God or Satan was available to speak to us. So my understanding was truly so limited at that point, I didn't know what to do with it. So fast forward many years later, I had ended up moving to Austin, Texas, where I am now, and I started working at a tech company, and that may have been part of the problem. I was very logical, worked a lot in technology, and I met a gentleman, John Cole, where we ended up becoming great friends, and he was into astrology. I thought, how is someone like you, who is technical and logical and left brain, into something like astrology? And he was so good at being able to explain it to me in a way that almost sounded scientific. It's like, wow, that actually makes sense. I think I can follow that. And so I started looking into it. I started, studying it a little bit, and he just sort of cracked that door open just a little bit. And I didn't get hit by lightning. There was no fire and brimstone coming down. I thought, well, okay, this might be all right. And he really just sort of introduced sort of a new concept to me that there might be something more than just the two options as far as how to live your life. And it's really great because he's since gone on to do a lot of work in human design. So it's pretty neat to see where his career has gone to, in addition to still being a fantastic developer. So that was kind of the beginning. And then the real transition for me, I think, was I randomly ran into this guy at a coffee shop. He was taking up the last table, and I ended up talking to him, and we had, lots of conversations. And during the time I know him, he kept saying, "You've got to meet my friend Ebby. I think you would really like her. You've got to meet my friend Ebby." And then he told me, he goes, "Well, when you meet her, she's going to ask you for your birth date." I thought, okay, I clearly need to meet this person, Ebby. And so we arranged a meeting, and sure enough, the first thing she asks me is, "What's my birth date?" So I tell her, and she looks at me and said, "Oh, you've had a rough year, haven't you?" I thought, how in the world did she know that? That was so crazy. So, I mean, it was crazy because I thought, here I am. I've met this woman who's so different from me. She's from a different generation, different ethnicity, orientation, religion, everything. And yet I was completely drawn to her. And we just became fast friends, as if she was just meant to be in my life.
So you called your meeting with this person at the coffee shop random,
Right.
but I think we can all agree that it was synchronistic.
Definitely. Definitely. Divine intervention, fate, kismet, whatever, but it was definitely meant to be. And in her coming into my life, I mean, if John had cracked the door open for me, Ebby came into my life and just kicked the door down. I mean, just blew open my whole world, my whole concept of what was even possible. And it was so exciting because, it was more than I ever even hoped it could be. And I say hoped because I was always kind of someone that I loved science fiction. I loved, fantasy type stuff. And I always wanted it to be true, right? It's like, yeah, it's science fiction. I love anything magic, that type of stuff. And I wanted that kind of stuff to be true, even though it was, crazy movies or, out there type of stuff. And it's so great because I've since learned it is true. And it just makes me just embrace life even more. I just love that fact. And the fact that I finally, in my soul, wanting it so badly to be true, even though I figured it was just made up, and to find out there was really something to it. So it was amazing. And Ebby was so willing and so generous with her time and so willing to teach me. And I was just a sponge. I mean, I wanted to learn anything and everything I could that she had to teach. And she would teach me about numerology and astrology and Lenormand and all this stuff. And I didn't just take it though at face value, because I still had to check it out, make sure it resonated with me. And I would test it, and I'd say, what works, and what did work I would keep, what didn't work I would just leave it. And then everything else just kind of went on my shelf. I have this sort of mental shelf that I put anything I don't really know what to do with right now. I just put it up on the shelf, periodically take it down, look at it, evaluate it some more, put it back on the shelf until I'm ready to deal with it. So there's a lot of things on the shelf those days. But we would have these just crazy conversations, and I just got to the point where she would say something, I'd be like, sure, okay, why not? So we continued to talk, and then eventually she ended up moving back to Chicago, sadly. And but I just kept on my journey. I continued to learn and seek, and just pick up more tidbits and different nuances, and just really got into the whole metaphysical world. And after a while, I really was looking for a group, something like-minded people, seekers that I really resonated with, and not just out there like woo-woo types, but I really wanted more analytical, responsible type people where we could just have some in-depth conversations. And I met some, really key people along the way, and some great groups that I was belonged to, but just not really the type of group I was really looking for. And during that time, Abby would always talk about her spirit group in Chicago, and she would talk about this great group that she was a part of. And I was like, yes, that's exactly what I want. But it was a closed group and in Chicago. And I even tried starting my own groups a couple of times, but it just it didn't gel the way I was hoping. And then along comes the pandemic, and everything went virtual. And that was really my saving grace. So during that time, then I guess there were some changes in the group, and I went through a trial period and had to kind of pass muster with several of the members, and I got approved to join this closed group, and just been so grateful to be able to be a part of such an amazing group. And it was exactly not only what I've been looking for, but exactly what I needed, and came into my life at the exact right time. And that's kind of how I came to be at the table.
And we love having you here. It's been great. And I know that feeling too of needing more, because it was about 2.5 years ago that I was looking for more as well. And I didn't quite know what it was I was looking for. But when I was invited to meet Abby and then eventually join the group, it was as if I was called home, to a new home.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't know what, I was just going to say, you don't know what you're missing until you have it. And then you realize.
Yeah. And it's also like meeting friends that you've always known, but are meeting for the first time.
Right.
And I heard a definition recently, which I thought was so great. It was, faith is being a part of a team where you don't necessarily know all the members.
Mm.
So since joining that group, I think my spiritual growth has really taken off again. It's been absolutely amazing. And after all this time of, exploring and learning, I've been able to absorb and to really gather so much information, but I guess I never really did anything with it. I was like, well, okay, it's information. It's interesting. It's fascinating, but what am I really going to do with this? And it wasn't until I joined the group that I really started thinking in that direction. I was like, okay, where does it go from here? And in 2020, I decided, I think I'm going to become psychic this year, which I think is so funny because, psychic, the term is such a old fashioned term. And what I realized is that we really truly are all psychic. It just, all that really means is that we can communicate and have a connection with that which we can't see. And we all have that ability, but what I learned is that it's also a skill, like anything else. And we can hone that skill and direct that skill. And I was so excited because I can learn a skill. And then the point of that is, if I can learn that skill, anybody can learn that skill. And I was just so excited about that. And so I've really been working on honing and learning the skill and creating that connection and learning the language of communicating with those that you can't see. And it's been just an amazing opportunity, an amazing journey to be able to do that.
Who are you communicating with?
So I guess who I'm communicating with, that depends. In the beginning, it was more just communicating with my higher self, my guides, people that were there to help me. And it was so interesting because you had asked the question earlier about, did it occur to me that it was, a guide or my higher self that I was talking to? And really, it wasn't until much more recently that I realized where those answers were coming from way back when.
Can you differentiate between your higher self and your guides?
Yes. So I hesitate on that because yes, I can if I'm specifically communicating with a guide. A lot of times, and this is something, it's like a relationship. You can set up the relationship however you want. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll ask my higher self to be sort of a go-between and consolidate a lot of the information. And I say consolidate because I've had some more experiences lately that I've really realized how many beings, how many people, guides, angels, loved ones are really out there trying to help us. And so a lot of times I'll ask that that sort of comes through sort of a spokesperson, or my higher self will be able to communicate that to me. But then there are other times too when I'm communicating more specifically with a guide for us for a specific reason. So in becoming a more connected, being a part of this group, one of the things that really struck me is, just how amazing everybody in this group was. And if I thought Ebby expanded my world, meeting Jamie was even a whole other level of expansion, and is just when I think it can't get any bigger, it just keeps getting bigger. And even she continues to expand before my eyes. And it's just amazing. I'm continually blown away. And my thought was like, oh my goodness, there's so much here. And this group has given me so much and encouraged me so much. What can I do to give back? And I had that thought in my mind. What can I do to give back? And not really sure, and seeking that out. And so one day I was in meditation, and through that I was shown this beautiful hillside in my meditation. And on this hillside in front of it was this portal, kind of think like a Stargate type portal. And it was interesting because I already have a connection with portals. I do some fountain design stuff, and all of my fountain designs end up having some kind of a portal element to it. So it was interesting that there was this portal element in this vision. And on the hillside behind the portal, there were all of these beings, like I mentioned, as far as, guides and angels and loved ones, and anyone that would be interested in life here on earth, sort of, spectators, whatever. And then so there was this portal, and then there was a doorway covered in smoke. And then I could actually bring somebody through that doorway, and it would cleanse sort of any preconceived ideas I had about that person. And I could bring them in front of this portal, and then all of those that were interested in their life, I call them their entourage, would be there. And I would ask the question, well, what is it that wants to come through this person into this life? Come through the portal, come through them, and to really be birthed or created in this lifetime for them. And I would end up getting answers. I would end up getting a word. I would end up getting an explanation about what was meaningful, what they were here to do, or what really wanted to be created through this person. And I was blown away. I'd never seen anything like that. And I thought, oh, this is great. This is something that I can give back. I can give back to this group. And I was so excited to be able to do that, and had the opportunity to be able to do that for each person around the table.
Yes, it was really beautiful. When you shared mine with me, it really resonated, and I loved it.
Oh, that's wonderful. It's wonderful. And it was so honoring. It was so humbling, honestly, to have the opportunity to spend time with everyone's entourage. And they were all so different and unique, but just to have that privilege of spending time with them, of hearing from them, of getting those different perspectives, it was truly amazing. So I thought, okay, great. I have this thing to give back. And then once I did that, everyone's like, oh, well, you need to take this public. It's like, whoa, that was more than I was ready for, taking something like that public. So yeah, that was a little bit of a challenge. I'm like, well, never in a million years did I expect that. But being in a part of this group, just really on a fast track of growth, and everyone was so encouraging and so helpful and supportive of all of this. I was like, well, in really thinking about it, if I look at who I was 5 years ago, where was I 5 years ago? How helpful would it have been for me to know that, there are so many beings beyond what we can see that are there for me, that love me, that want to help me, that want that creativity, want that creation, whatever that is, for me into this world, and not just for me, but for everybody else that it would touch. That would be so important to be able to know that, kind of like that whole being on a team that you don't know all the members. Again, there's this whole huge team that we have that we don't even know, that we don't even see, that are available to us. And I thought that would be super helpful. And it would also, I've always been like, what's my purpose? What am I here for? What's the point of all of this? And for me, 5 years ago, to know there is a point and there is a purpose, and this is what I'm being called to do, would have been just amazing. And so that, all right, I'll do this. And so that's how I ended up creating portal readings. And that's what I call them, is portal readings. And I've now put that out there, and it's just been an amazing experience to be able to offer that to people.
That's so wonderful. I'm so glad you decided to share this gift, because I think that you're going to help a lot of people really understand that they do have a team up there ready to help and assist, as long as they're open to receiving the information, and you're that person to help them receive that information.
Well, I think there's so many of us, and I mean, this journey is never ending, right? It just keeps going. And this group, we all continue to grow and expand, and we all have a different piece of the pie. And we've even talked about that. And I love that's what our conversations are around the table, about how we're all coming at it from a different perspective, and we all have a different specialty, if you will, to be able to help and to heal and to guide people in their own journeys. And I mean, honestly, it's in this crazy, crazy world, it's really helps me to keep my sanity in all of this. Because I thought, if this day-to-day world that we go through and get up and go to work and, have dinner and go to bed, if I thought that's what all there was, I would absolutely go insane. And just knowing that there's so much more out there, it really not only keeps me sane, but keeps me excited about not only getting up every day, but going to sleep. And then, we can have a whole other world in our dream world besides, which we get to talk a lot about dreams. And we have so many dream masters in our group, which is phenomenal to be able to hear the actual work that happens while we're asleep in another dimension. So we really have such incredible tools to be able to navigate all of this. And then our discussions, just being able to navigate our 3D world, while at the same time understanding that we're multidimensional, infinite beings, and how to marry those two up and yet enjoy the journey along the way. I absolutely love that. That's one of the things too that was so great, I think, with meeting Ebby in the beginning, is she did a perfect thing for me. Is she made it lighthearted. She made it fun. It wasn't so serious, this metaphysical type experience. It wasn't so heavy and serious and all that. It was like this fun little experiment that we could get into and to enjoy. And that was probably the best thing that she could have done for me. And another thing that I love so much about this group, it's fun. We enjoy our time together. We laugh. We encourage each other. We also cry and challenge one another in our journeys, but it's all in love and in fun, and just really the joy in all of it has just been phenomenal.
I agree. The support and the friendship and the encouragement is so incredible. And I agree with you. It makes life so much more joyful and fulfilling when you can see beyond the 3D.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I just can't wait to see where things go from here. Things are moving so fast. And I've heard several people talk about that time is speeding up. And it certainly feels that way. Sometimes during the pandemic, things seemed like things were slowing down, but at the same token, things were speeding up in other ways. And I think that the growth and the opportunity for people to have gone inward, and certainly true for me, to have gone inward and explore that world has sped things up in a way that I don't think I'm going to truly appreciate until a little bit down the road.
Well, this has been really exciting hearing about your journey. Where can the listeners find you if they're interested in a portal reading?
Yes. If anyone is interested in getting a reading, it would be portalreadings.com. So just go there and I'll explain. It says Portal Readings by Ankara. And Ankara is a name that I am known by from a group outside. So I was part of a group that did channeling. And, we're known by a lot of names in other dimensions. And that was a name that I was known by this group of beings. And Ankara actually means portal. So it was fitting that I would end up utilizing that name with portal readings. So certainly if anyone is interested, I would be more than happy and privileged to be able to contact your entourage and see what they have to say.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing.
Thank you so much for the time today.
Thanks, Susan. I love how Susan decided to hone in on the skills and her abilities to communicate with the non-physical and bring through messages for those seeking to know more about their life's purpose. And to know we all have this ability, we just need to practice. For a portal reading from Susan, aka Ankara, visit portalreadings.com. Well, this concludes our introductory episode to all 12 tribe members. We hope you enjoy getting to know each one of us personally. Moving forward, we will all be around the cosmic table together, sharing with you any and all topics you can imagine related to metaphysics. We're excited for you to grab a seat and join us. See you at the table.